So here at the end of the primary conveyor, we're going to talk about belt tracking. Situations where you're going to start to notice that the belt tracking is off. One, you'll smell rubber. Usually if I'm operating the machine and I'm walking around with the remote and I start to smell rubber, that's some indication that you're starting to burn up your belt. The belt's tough and it's fairly forgiving, but if you can see smoke or start to smell rubber, you got a tracking problem. The other more minor indicator is that your belt speed starts to come down. So the engine's having to work harder to drive the belt. It's probably because it's rubbing somewhere along the frame and stealing your horsepower. To get a visual on your belt tracking, I'd like to stand here at the end of the belt, looking up while it runs slowly. Make certain you don't have any material on the belt, otherwise that'll be an embarrassing situation. But then looking down your belt line at each of your pulleys, trying to see your offset of the belt on either side of the pulley. So pulley adjustment to help in a tracking situation. I take a flathead screwdriver or a small pry bar. There's a notch here on the back side of the bearing itself. You loosen up the 4 bolts of the bearing, and then the mounting bracket for that bearing is slotted. So with that flathead screwdriver in there, you wedge that pulley out, all the while watching your tracking, so you're still rotating the belt slowly. And in doing so, you'll see that belt start to sway one direction or another as you're making an adjustment. You can kind of find the sweet spot on that. Once you like it, take your wrench, tighten those 4 bolts back up, and then this pulley's back to being squared away on tracking. So another thing to keep in mind is your primary scraper. This is a key feature of the machine to help prevent material from running back, especially if you're running concrete. You want to make sure your scraper is good and tight. It should make a perpendicular contact with the primary conveyor belt itself and then have a small amount of upward force against it. There's no pulley or anything behind the belt where the primary scraper makes contact, so you should be able to shove the belt up a little bit, kind of pressing that blade of the scraper into the belt. That should give you a good clean cut as material comes around the belt, and then that material should drop off. If you start to see signs of drippage or things falling off of the belt on the return trays, be a good time to take a look at your primary scraper and make sure you don't have any issues.